Hello, everybody. Good to see you for another video here in class. I wanted to give you a little bit of a mini lecture. This video might end up being a little longer. I apologize. You can skip it, come back to it, watch parts of it now, parts of it a little bit later. Use it for what you see fit. But as we're talking about introductions and conclusions this week, I haven't found a textbook that does a perfect job of really emphasizing the importance of some of the things that we are covering in introductions and conclusions. None of them really ever go over all the elements that I want them to cover, and when they do, they don't cover them well. Okay, and so I wanted to give you a better form of guidance for how to do this better in your own public speaking. So as you can see here on my screen, um, I'll actually jump back and, this is the slides that I would use in my regular class here. And these are some of the big things that we would cover. And I hope to cover them all in this little bit more of a lengthy video, but again, because this stuff is important, okay? So to discuss why introductions and conclusions are important, to give you the 5 elements, you'll see that this will be on things like your tests. This will be questions I ask you throughout the semester, as well as every outline you give me. You've already seen these 5 elements for introductions and 3 elements for conclusions. And, it's safe to say these are elements that you should use in every speech you ever give in your life, as well as every paper that you write. And so it's important to recognize what these elements are and what they each individually do for a presentation. And then lastly, just a personal opinion I have as far as making sure you understand the difference between summarizing information and synthesizing. Okay, so just jumping right in, the importance of introductions and conclusions. A lot of people think that introductions are to hook speeches or audience members. They're totally right. Okay, that is one part of an introduction. Okay, but like we just barely talked about here a couple slides ago, there's 5 parts of an introduction. So a hook is only one part. Okay, so why do an introduction? Well, sure, we've got to get people's attention and get them ready to listen. We've also got to make sure they're comfortable enough to be willing to listen to the rest of the speech too. We've got to orient them to topics, show people why we're important. And at the end of the day, we've got to basically guide them through our speech so they know what we're going to talk about. Because if we don't hook them and help them feel comfortable for the rest of the presentation, they're not going to sit through it and they're going to be done. Nobody's going to read that paper. Nobody's going to listen to that speech. Similarly, in our conclusions, once we're done, you could have given the best presentation ever. But if you have your audience, they leave saying, so what? Or there was a lot of information and I can't really remember everything or what I was supposed to take from that, then again, you've wasted your time. You need to be able to give your audience more than just so yeah, any questions at the end of your presentation. Okay, so in order to write effective introductions, you need all 5 of these elements. Okay, some of you have already taken these off and when you've written your outlines, and I've made note of that when I gave you my comments. All 5 of these things should be on every outline you write because each one of them is important for every speech and paper you ever give, okay? I'd put a little star or something in your notes, in your brains. Remember that this is actually a pretty good order for how these things should go as well. Sometimes you might switch up the orient to the topic and establish credibility, but for the most part, you should always start with your hook, you're gaining attention. You should always end with your previewing the body of your speech, okay? So these 5 things need to happen every speech you give in this class, and they should happen in this order. Okay, so as we go through each one of them, and again, I'll try to be brief, but we need to understand the importance of them. First and foremost, gaining attention. This is the one most people get, and it makes sense. With everything going on in the world today, cell phones, people talking to us, we're limited on time. We're limited on brain power. We're limited on energy. Why in the world would somebody then want to listen to you speak? No, you need to give them a reason. Right? So that's what this first element is to gain people's attention so that they want to see what it is you're talking about. Okay, so you can see I've got a pretty long list here, and I'm going to go through them quickly, but I want to point out really quick, this is a list. Okay, it is not use humor, tell a funny joke, or ask a question. Okay, funny enough, the 2 things I see most often in my classes are question the audience and use humor. But on this list, notice they're the only ones that have warnings after them as well. And that's because people tend to use them and they oftentimes use them wrong. Okay, so As we go through just a couple things you can do to gain attention, recognize there's more to it than just simply, hello everybody, how are you today? Okay, first and foremost, you can refer to the situation. If you want to gain people's attention, sometimes just the place or the event that you are presenting for is enough to get people to be ready to listen to you. Graduation, everybody's excited to graduate. They want to hear what life has to offer them, and they're going to have you tell them. 9/11, a pretty tragic event. You get up and you simply say, hello, everybody. We're at a pretty hard topic for me to talk about. That's all you need to do, and people are ready. Okay, so sometimes it's as simple as referring to the situation. And if you were to use one of these other things here, these other types of ways to gain attention, they'd actually almost be offensive in some situations, right? So refer to the situation can do well. Startling the audience with a scary fact, statistic, statement, story. Usually that can work well. Right now, this might date the video a little bit, but currently at our time, anytime you turn on a news station, you're going to get a COVID statistic first thing. And that's trying to get you scared. We want to see who died. We want to see who's sick. We want to see who's suffering. But we don't want to, but it's being shown to us and it gets our attention. The moment you hear anything about death, it makes human beings listen, right? So scary things is a good way to gain attention. You want to always make sure you've got my little note here, fact check your information. Nothing's more embarrassing than to get up and give a startling statement and then somebody says, but that's not true. Be careful of that. And also be careful of going too scary, because there are certain limits where if you scare your audience too much, they're just more scared and not willing to listen than they are being able to actually pay attention to you. Okay, so that's startling the audience. Moving into asking questions, the thing that I said to be careful with, there's plenty of different types of questions you can ask your audience. And questions in and of themselves can be good if you know what you're doing. Okay, direct questions, you can talk to your audience. You can specifically say, hey, everybody, answer this question for me. And if you do this kind of question, you want to have your audience interact. So you say, hello, everybody. How was everybody's drive? You should let your audience answer. You should go to a few people and hear and interact with them. That can be great. And that gets audience interaction, which is a crucial part of an attention getter, right? Rhetorical questions is another type of question you could use, one that does not necessarily require an answer. This is where a lot of people go wrong, though, is they either mix the two or they do one of them incorrectly. Okay, in my classes, I get a lot of this. I'm just going to put a picture up and then I'll take it off so you can look a little bit more at the words if you're interested. I get this in most of my classes. Something to the extent of, hello, how many of you like to smile? Raise your hands. To me, asking something like that, do you love to smile? How many of you are students in a class right now? That's basically the equivalent of asking people whether they whether they like to breathe. Yes, and in fact, we all need to breathe in order to survive. The question's pointless. It's meaningless, okay? You want to avoid that when you're asking questions. If you were going to ask a question, you need to make sure you have a reason you're asking it, whether it be direct questions, audience engagement, or whether it be that it has something to do with your speech, okay? A relevant question. But even relevant questions, you still got to be careful. Maybe you're going to give a question on positivity. Okay, the who loves to smile still isn't a very good question because of course we all love to smile. So rather than asking just a relevant question, one that has a point. Anybody ever paid attention to how often you smile? That's a question that encourages actual thinking, not just a quick raise of hands and you don't even sometimes give them a chance to see how many people raise their hands, right? So you got to be careful with your questions that you ask. So that's my warning there. Questions can be good if you know what you're doing, but don't ask people if they like to smile. Don't ask them if they like to breathe air. And don't, if you ask them a question and you want them to answer, or it's a question that says, answer me, give them a chance to answer. Don't just move on and act like you don't care about the answer. Okay, so that's our questions. Another thing you can do is you can use quotes. Quotes are awesome. Sometimes they can be really inspirational. So for instance, I've got an image right here. The way I see it, if you want the rainbow, you got to put up with the rain. That's a wonderful quote, right? And if you're talking about perseverance, you're talking about pushing for success, that might be a good quote to start off with. But a lot of times I see this, and it wouldn't be on my slides if I hadn't had students do this to me already, right? I get things like this. Your love fills my heart with abundant bliss. Anyway, let's talk about filing taxes. That has nothing to do with the speech purpose, right? So similar, you're going to see this word relevance a lot with your attention getters. Whatever you decide to do, you have to make sure it relates to the actual topic that you're going to cover. Cutesy, lovey-dovey quotes really aren't going to cut it in terms of professional public speaking. One last thing to remember is, again, always check if you're going to use a quote, make sure it's accurate and comes from the right person. Nothing's worse than giving an Abraham Lincoln quote where he talks about the internet. Surprise, the internet wasn't around when Abraham Lincoln was alive. Okay, so double check your quotes. Okay, so stories. I'm not going to play this. You can see I've got a little video here, Steve Jobs motivational speech. If you want to watch it, you can easily find this on YouTube. I like to use this video, though, to show people how quickly stories captivate audiences, how willing we are to listen. We're actually called Homo neurons, which is humans of story, because as people, we just love hearing a good tale. Okay, so rather than coming in just cracking a lame joke for the sake of saying you did it and moving on, rather than coming in and asking a pointless question, not many people ever think to come in and give us a little quick story about your life or something that taught you something, which is also related to your topic at hand. Okay, stories are great, but if it has nothing to do with your speech, again, it's no better than a quote, right? But a good story instantly pulls in audiences. Okay, they can be really powerful because we want to know what happens next. We want to know how you got to where you are in your life today. It's just something that pulls us in as people. Okay, so stories can be really powerful when used correctly. Same with visual aids. We're just people we're no better than children. We like to look at things. We like to see things that inspire us. When I see this little picture on the left of a guy, I don't even know what that is. I'm curious. Why is he doing that? Why does he look so sad? What's happened? Who are the people in the background? It looks like it's evening. This is going, it's getting late. Why is he here so late at night? We do that. We just instantly want to know more about the things we see. So another one, if you want to look up a good TED Talk, My Journey to Yo-Yo Mastery, watch the first minute and a half of this video and just see how quickly a simple thing like watching a guy do a couple yo-yo tricks and him also combining with other attention getters telling a story. Watch how much you want to listen to the rest of that presentation in a minute and a half. Okay, so visual aids, your object speeches that you gave for speech one, your introductions, there was a reason those accounted as your attention getters, because an object is a super easy way to get people to want to listen. Okay, and as I pointed out with the yo-yo video, remember, you don't just have to only do a visual aid. You can combine stories, visual aids, and even humor all into one attention getter if you want to, right? If you're creative enough to put it together and pull it off. Okay, so lastly, my other one that is a thing I like to warn people about, humor is wonderful. I am a person, I've researched humor my whole life. I love it to death. I know a lot about it, but I can't in good conscience tell you that it is a cure-all for every situation, and especially in public speaking. And I see it more often used as a crux by people than anything. I don't know what to do, therefore I'm just gonna do a quick joke and jump in. Humor is important if it's relevant, right? If you tell a joke that has something to do with your topic, it'll go better. But as we know, there's things with humor that can be potentially negative. You can offend people. You can not be funny. Nothing's worse than telling a joke and nobody laughs because they don't get it, right? Some other things that are more research-based. Humor does not help learning, though a lot of people think it does. We actually don't remember things that are tied with humor. We actually forget them easier. So that works both in learning. So teachers who like to say that learning directly helps students learn better, that's a lie. As well as advertising, marketing, companies trying to sell things. One of my favorite Super Bowl commercials of all time is rock, paper, scissors, and it's a Bud Light commercial. Search it up, YouTube, Bud Light, rock, paper, scissors. What you're gonna find is the video itself is actually mislabeled as a Budweiser commercial, right? Even though it pops up, the people who put the video online forgot what company made the humor. That's pretty crazy. Even the people uploading the video don't even remember what the company is. So I use that video as a pretty good example. We don't necessarily just remember things because they were tied with jokes. We remember what makes something funny. We don't remember the purpose of why the people were tying it with funny in the first place. Okay, so be careful with that. The other warning I would give you really quick with humor is we all have a class clown from high school that you could easily remember. There's a reason we use the word clown. Sure, clowns are meant to be funny, but also we don't take them seriously. They are making jokes of themselves for our humor in rodeos. They let themselves get attacked. They fall over. They're bumbling buffoons. You know, we love that. But that isn't the essence of public speaking that you really want to put with yourself. So jokes can be good if used sparingly and in the right manner, relevant, funny, tied to the topic. But the more and more you use humor as a crux, the more and more you run the risk of it damaging your credibility. Because if people can't take you seriously, well, that's a hit to your competence. You don't seem like you know what you're doing. It doesn't seem like you care about us because you're just making a joke about the serious topic. And then character, your trustworthiness. I don't know if I can trust you if you're a good person or a smart person because you're a clown, right? So some warnings with humor. Again, feel free to use it if you know what you're doing, but be careful with it and don't use it for every presentation. Okay, so that's attention getters. Again, that's the first of 5 things that you need to make sure that you do while doing an effective introduction. Okay, number 2 is introducing the topic and its significance. People get confused by this. They see it on the outline and it says introduce the topic and it's introduced under the introduction. Okay, it's an interesting choice of words. So you can think of it as introducing the topic. You can think of it as establishing topic significance. You can think of it as orienting people to the topic. Okay, they all mean the same thing. After we gain attention, we need to make sure that we bring all of our audience on the same page. Okay, I have given you some examples throughout class. If you're ever in my classes, I like to talk about anime, and I'm going to try to persuade people to watch anime. That was in our purpose statement video, right? A lot of people have no idea what anime is. They think anime is this thing called hentai, where it's a bunch of naked people and weird things that shouldn't be on the internet in the first place, right? That's not what anime is, but it's what some people think it is. So after we've got people interested in what we're going to talk about, before we can do anything else, we need to help them understand what the topic is. Okay, anime is not naked people and weird stuff. It is stories told through an animated cartoon process put into moving picture, right? That explains what it is. And now everybody, professional people who understand anime and new people, can get behind that and they can at least say, okay, now that I get this, tell me more, right? So we need to bring everybody on the same page and help them understand what our topic is. We need to explain the importance of it, why it matters to an audience. So again, if I'm going to try to persuade people to watch anime, I need to show them why it will be of a benefit to them, right? So I've got to tell them, I've got to help them understand it's stories that are awesome that they don't know are out there. It's things that they might really love, but again, are uneducated or don't know how to find it. That there's only certain things that you can find in anime that you wouldn't find elsewhere. Those are some things that maybe help explain why it would be important to people. We need to show that importance on an individual basis so that people understand, this topic is important to me. Right? So explain what the topic is, show the importance of it, and give people a reason to listen. If you are willing to stick with me over these next few slides, over this next 10 minutes, I can potentially make your life better. I can make your enjoyment and what you do with it better. Right, so that's establishing topic significance. Okay, so in the order of making this a little bit shorter of a video, I'm going to skip through some of my tips here because you can pause the video, you can read them on your own. But I wouldn't skip over them if I were you because these are important things to remember. Okay, so number 3. Okay, jumping back here really quick. We have 5 elements of effective introductions. So far, we've talked about starting off with gaining interest or attention. We've talked about orienting people to topics, introducing them to what our topic is broadly. Now we're moving into establishing our credibility. Okay, that's number 3 in our list of effective introductions. Okay, so to remind you, credibility is the 3 C's. There are 3 C's that make up credibility. It's at the top, and these 3 things make it up. Character, whether you're trustworthy or a good person. Competence, whether you seem like you know what you're doing. And caring, whether you seem like you care about your audience. Okay, credibility equals, do people think you are qualified or believable when you talk about the subject? Okay, it's one of the most important things a speaker needs. If people don't think you're qualified or believable, it doesn't matter how good your arguments are. It doesn't matter how good your attention getter is. The moment I think you're a bad person, don't know what you're talking about, or don't care about me, I'm out as an audience member. Right? So credibility is super important. So in our introduction, we need to make sure people understand that we are qualified to talk about this thing. Okay, we don't just leave it to them to hope or guess that we are. We have to show them why we are credible. Okay, so we need to show people these variables. Again, pause the video if you want to look at them, but we need to show people we match these three things. Okay, so some tips for you. You can look through this list, but these are things you want to do in your speech. And sometimes it's just as simple as telling people why you're qualified. If you've done research on the topic, say it. If you've lived or experienced the topic, say that, right? I am somebody who doesn't know anything about snowboarding, but in my class, I have students who have been snowboarding their entire lives. They might not have researched academic snowboarding, but they've lived snowboarding for 16, 18, 20 years now, right? So sometimes it's as simple as mentioning how educated or researched you are on a topic. Sometimes it's simply just telling people how you relate to them. Hello, everybody. I am from a small town, just like all of you, and I understand what it's like to come from a town where you have less resources than some of the bigger cities. And I'm here to give you some tips and tricks that can help you so that you can stay competitive, because I want you to succeed. It was hard for me, and I don't want it to be as hard for you. That shows you care about your audience, right? And again, that only took me 5 seconds to do. Okay, so all these are pretty quick things. The last one that I'd like to just go over really briefly, be confident, energetic, and fluent. Many of you in your first speeches now have gotten a comment from me that says you look like you hate what you're doing. You can't do that when you get up here and speak, okay? You need to smile. You need to look like you're excited. You could hate public speaking. You can know and recognize that it's work. You can know and recognize that you don't want to be there. We get it. But while you're up there for the 4 to 6 minutes, or recording yourself for the 4 to 6 minutes that you have to look like you are super excited to be there and that you really care about your audience, which is why you're pumped to do this, right? So if you don't, it shows that you don't care, and it shows you don't know what you're doing, and it shows that you're a bad person who's wasting our time as an audience, right? So be confident, energetic, smile, get excited, get pumped. In my physical classes, I kick over chairs because I like to say, like, that should be the energy that you walk into your presentation with, is you just need to let it out and kick over a chair because you're so excited, right? So those are some tips. Other things I like to give a do not list, okay? Don't apologize in your videos. Don't apologize in your speeches. You don't owe us, the audience, anything. They get that you're nervous. They get that sometimes you're going to forget a main point for 5 seconds and need just a break. Don't tell us you're sorry. It hurts your credibility. It makes it look like you don't know what you're doing. Just be quiet. Be quiet. Pause for a moment and pick back up and show people, yes, I can do this. Okay, don't apologize. Don't tell us you prepared at the last second. Again, that doesn't show me you care about me as an audience member, that you put in zero effort on this until you absolutely had to. Make sure you show up on time, that you're ready and early. Don't read your speech. Okay, put in time and memorize it, prepare it. And then lastly, again, much like our energy and being confident, energetic, fluent, seem like you don't want to be there is something you should not do. You want to speak to your audience. You're there for them because you want to be for them. Okay, so that's credibility, some things to think about. As I show some images here, at the end of the day, remember that credibility is perceived by our audience. You don't have credibility. It is something your audience sees in you. So it's up to you to help them see that you're the hero versus the villain, okay? And there's a reason when I show the difference in presidents, nobody today really ever looks back and has any questions whatsoever about the goodness of Abraham Lincoln. He was a good guy, and he stood for good things. He was competent and smart, and he cared about his nation. Interesting that we're torn as a nation right now, 50-50, when we see images of any new president, right? Everybody feels like they're against us in some regard. So you want to lean toward one of these presidents, i.e. the one on the left, over the others, right? That's the image we want our audience to feel about us when we are up there presenting. Okay, so I'm going to combine main points, or our elements 4 and 5, for introductions, because usually they go hand in hand. They happen pretty quick with one another. Okay, so purpose statements, I've already covered this in a big video, so I can be pretty quick and simple on this. Much like we used a purpose statement to build our presentation and to help us remember what we were trying to achieve, we are now going to just simply tell our audience what our purpose is in speaking today. Okay, so hello everybody. So I've went through my attention getter at this point. I've established topic significance. I've established credibility. Now that I've done all that. So anyways, my audience, my purpose today in speaking to you is to get you to watch anime. That's it. That's all your purpose statement is. We're not trying to hide it. It's on the papers as they walk into your room to listen to your speech. They know what you're speaking on. Okay, so don't try to make it a secret. Blatantly tell them and help them understand what your goal is that you're trying to achieve. I'm trying to get you to watch anime. I'm trying to teach you how to make a PB&J sandwich. My goal today is to persuade you to buy this product. Just let them know. Be upfront. Okay, so I've got this list here. You can go back, you can see these are similar to how to make a good purpose statement in our previous video. So pause if you want to look through them, but I'm going to skip through. Main point or main element 5, preview what you're going to do in this speech. Okay, so combining this with purpose, usually they go hand in hand. They're the same sentence, you put a comma. Sometimes they're 2 sentences, but preview always happens directly after your purpose statement. Hello everybody, my goal in giving this speech today is to get you to watch anime. And I plan, this is where we switch to preview, and I plan to do that by 1, giving you a list of characters in anime that are fun and neat and that you would not get in any other form of media. 2, teaching you about the cultural differences you can learn from watching anime and seeing other nations through their artwork. 3, by giving you your own list of anime to watch so that you can get started. 1, 2, 3, main point 1, 2, 3, ABC. Blatantly tell your audience exactly what your 3 main points are that you're going to cover so that they know how your speech is going to proceed. That way, they can know how much energy they need to give you. They know when you say, now I'm moving on to giving you your own list of anime, they can say, oh, we're at main point 3 now, I'm almost done with this speech. Okay, so be good to your audience. The whole reason we do purpose and preview statements is for our audience to make things easier. Because remember, as they come into this and listen to you, you know your topic because you've been working on it for hours, days, weeks. They don't know much about it. Even the professionals who do know a lot about it don't know what you're trying to accomplish with your speech. And so we're helping them by telling them our purpose and then walking them through how we're going to try to achieve that purpose. Okay, so all in all, I'll put this up here. This is what a preview would read like. Okay, and you can see at the very first sentence there, I've tied that purpose statement in too. So elements 4 and 5 are both here in this statement. Okay, so you can pause that, read through that. Okay, so I've got some other tips for you for introductions. I'll let you read through these on your own. You can pause again. The only thing I would remind you as I look through these is to say, keep your introduction in perspective. I've talked about 5 things that you need to do every single speech, but when we consider that, for instance, your next speech is going to be roughly 2 to 4 minutes of a procedure speech, that means that you're talking literally 15 to 30 seconds to do all 5 of these things. Okay, that's not a lot of time. So you need to account for realistically how much time you have to do all 5 things as you're building your speeches. Okay, so keep track of your time and put it in proportion to how much time you have in your speech for these things. Okay, the other big thing, make sure you start out with your name. A lot of people jump in or they forget and they just kind of start talking. Introduce us to yourselves. Okay, make sure we know who you are. And don't build speeches around introductions. Don't think you come up with some clever way to get people to be introduced to your topic and then build the speech around that fun thing. Build a good speech and build your introduction after you've made that good speech. Okay, so that's introductions. Okay, so lastly, let's finish up with conclusions. In conclusions, there's 3 elements that you need to do in every speech and paper you ever give. Okay, summarize, synthesize, and use a clincher. Okay, so just jumping right in, summarizing I don't know where in society we went wrong, but somewhere our K through 12 teachers began to teach us that you should just simply say what you said in a different way, and that is what summarizing is in a conclusion. No, that's wrong. I would slam a table, but it's too loud for a video camera. No, that is not summarizing. Your goal in summarizing is not to check a box and say you did it. Remember, this whole speech is for your audience, and we're trying to work them and walk them through everything. At this point, you could have been talking to them for 4 minutes on your main points. It could be 15 minutes. You could have been given an hour presentation in the real world, right? That's a lot of information for people to follow when, again, remember, they don't know what you were coming to talk about in the first place. So think about how much you're tired just listening to me talk right now, if you've even made it through this video so far. It takes mental effort to do such a thing, to learn new information. So it's us helping people is why we summarize our main points. We don't just say what we already said. That's demeaning to our audience. Rather, we help remind them two big things: what we've covered and why we covered it, okay? So in other words, our main points, and tie it back to our purpose of the speech in the first place. Thank you everybody for making it through the last hour of my presentation. I have shown you, one, that there are awesome anime characters that you will never get in any other form of media that can only happen in anime. I have shown you there's cool cultural differences between America and Japan and other countries that you can get from looking at their animated productions. And three, I've given you your own list of anime to go home and watch, and I've made it tailored to you so that you know exactly which shows are going to be good starting points for yourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, I have done this to help remind you and show you you can watch anime, and not only can you, but you should, because it will be to your benefit and you will have great enjoyment from doing so. Okay, that right there was not simply just saying everything I'd said for the last hour. That put everything into perspective. It basically showed the audience the whole speech. Main point one, main point two, main point three, and I did those three things to achieve my purpose. And I reminded them why we've been talking for the last hour. Right? That's a summary. Okay? So that's what you want to strive for when you summarize your speech. Okay, synthesizing is the biggest, it's the most failed part in college papers, student papers, and the sad thing is it's the most important one. Okay, and it's also the same for speeches. People overlook this, and it's because it's the hardest thing, right? Synthesizing is the first new information you're going to give in this presentation. So far in your main points, sure, you've made arguments, but let's be for real. You've used other people's quotes, other people's research, you've used other people's stories, their anime, their characters, their blah, blah, blahs, whatever you gave your speech on. You've used everybody else's stuff and you put it into a good argument. You made it flow, you made it make sense, but it was a bunch of other people's stuff. Now we get to you, and you get to make your statement to the world. Okay, so a lot of people like to say, this is your so what, right? So from here on, you don't talk about your speech as much anymore. You're not going to keep going over the characters, the story, culture, and this list. Okay, you did that in your summary. Now you need to tell your audience, so what? Okay, you need to give them a, well, because I've shown you should watch anime, so what? So go home and watch some anime tonight. Go home and give your first show a try. Go home and watch a show, and then if you like it, now you are welcome and you can start fitting into some of the cultures that exist. You can go to a Comic-Con and understand what might be happening and some of the characters that you're seeing people dress up as. You are inside on many of the jokes and stories that this culture of people you didn't even know existed are a part of. You're there now, and you can join that and you can have good discussions. That's neat, right? That's a so what. That is a, this is how you use what I've taught you through this speech to now enhance your own life. Okay, so give them a so what. As the summary goes back up and explains your speech, the so what now goes into what's next in life. How do I apply this to my life? Okay, that's the so what, and give them a challenge. So go home and watch your first episode tonight. Okay, if you don't give them a challenge, they're going to think all this is cool, they're going to love it, and then they're going to walk out and they'll say, I don't know what to do now, and they're just going to forget. So give them a challenge. Okay, whatever your topic is, challenge them to do something. Okay, And then lastly, you can paint this picture of what the world might look like if people followed what you gave or tried to persuade people to do in this presentation. Okay, so this video right here, I Sued the School System, I would highly recommend spending 4 minutes of your time watching it. It is a very good video that shows all the elements of introductions, conclusions, how to build main points, subpoints, use good logic. It's a great video, okay? But if you want to see how a good so what is used or how a good picture is painted, this is the video that you'll want to watch for a good example, okay? It also shows you a good thing. Let me jump back here to bookending. I put bookending here because it looks a little nicer on the slides, but bookending is more so a part of a clincher, okay? Your clincher is the thing that goes at the very end of your speech, much like you have your attention getter at the beginning, you have your clincher at the end of your speech, okay? And as I jump forward really quick here, notice this list is the exact same one for attention getters, okay? It's ending your speech off on a big bang, much like you started it off on a big bang, okay, so that it becomes more memorable for your audience. Okay, so a clincher is your memorable finish. Okay, so what bookending is, it's a type of way that you can clinch your speech, and it works out really cool. It's kind of like a mic drop. It just is neat if you can pull it off. It's basically when you end your speech the same way you started it. So let's say you started off giving a joke. Maybe I made a joke about, why did the dog go to the library? Well, a lot of people think it was to read. You know, haha, lame, right? But I get to the end of my speech, and my whole speech was about the cool things that libraries can offer people. So then I end my speech saying, so again, I ask you, why did the dog go to the library? Well, it wasn't just to read, but it was to educate himself. It was to go and become a better person. It was to be entertained, but at the same time enriched. It was to grow his life both personally and professionally so that he could live better. That's why the dog went to the library. Mic drop, right? I know, lame example on the spot, but that's bookending. I ended the same way I started. And in this I Sued the School System video, there's a very good bookending example. Bookending doesn't work for all topics and speeches you might give, but if you ever can pull it off, it's pretty cool. Okay, so you can pause this list if you'd like to look through it. Know that music, if you can pull off music, it works really good with creating a positive feeling with the speech. It makes it powerful. But I'm going to give you the warning that most people fail on this. They don't know how to get the tech to work. It doesn't happen the right time. If somebody else is pushing the button, they always push it wrong. So just be careful with music. Okay, so as we end off this video, I've got a couple final tips for you as far as preparing conclusions. And again, you can pause this to read through them more carefully. Notice that this list looks very similar to your final tips for introductions, okay? Keep the context of your conclusion in perspective. For a 2 to 4 minute speech, that means we're talking like 10 to 20 seconds is all you have to do all three things to conclude. Okay, that's not a lot of time. Even when we get up to 4 to 6 minutes, that means you get like 30 seconds to a minute. That's quick, okay? So put perspective into how big your conclusion should be. Remember to end off strong. I see this, and you can go back and a lot of your videos ended this way where you summarized, you didn't really synthesize, and then you just kind of looked for a second. So yeah, anyway, look forward to hearing your questions. That's not a bang. That is a very little whimper of, I didn't know what I was doing with my conclusion, so please help me. Have a good day. You need to make sure that your entire conclusion is written out, that you know exactly what you're going to say, and with that clincher, sprinkle that little bit of fairy dust, that little bit of magic there to really get people to go, wow. Okay, and then whenever you've wowed them, say thank you and let them know you're done. Okay, so that's some tips for conclusions. I've got this one more you can read through, but the big thing I'd recommend is the clincher is the least important of the three in my book, okay? Summarizing and synthesizing, you need them without a doubt, okay? You need to have both of those, and I would much rather you be able to summarize your whole speech for your audience in a succinct manner and give them a synthesis of so what than to give a cool mic drop. It's, you know, I use this example today, thinking like baking some food, right? the pepper that you sprinkle on at the end of your meal. So you made some nice pasta, you put a little pepper on there. That makes it just a little bit better. That pepper's awesome, right? But it doesn't matter how much pepper you put on food if it's a terrible piece of turd that you made. Okay, so sprinkle pepper all you want. It's not fixing that meal. Same thing with speeches. The clincher's the pepper. But if the rest of the speech, and especially your summary and synthesis, are garbage, it doesn't matter how cool your conclusion is. You gave people garbage. So just make sure you have your summary and synthesis first, and then do your clincher last. All right, so I've got this summary. Again, you can pause it, but I hope this helps you as you're working on your speeches throughout the rest of the semester. I appreciate you spending some time watching the video if you made it through. It's my best effort to show you how I think this should go and to really help you to do your best. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to email me, and have yourselves a good day.